Hello, I'm Mr. B-Bates1 and welcome back to another episode of MC Map Faker. First of all, I'd just like to say a big thank you very much to my subscribers. I really appreciate it. Over 300 now. It's really skyrocketed recently. I really appreciate everyone that has been subscribing. It really does help me out on the channel, and it just spurs me on to make more stuff for you guys. But that's it about subs now. Let's get into what we are going to be doing today. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to make an entire minigame in less than 50 command blocks. That's right. You heard me, in less than 50 command blocks. What is this minigame, you ask? It's Chicken Drop. That's right. Some time ago, in my prototype video, I actually showcased entity hit detection. It was in its very basic form back then, and you know, I've had a lot of people talk about it and they're saying it was actually quite good, so I've taken that to another level and I've decided to turn that into a minigame. And if you know me by now, I always like to showcase things as well as show you how they're done. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to show you how things work, and then I'm going to show you how things work. First of all then, let's just check on my balance. Let's see how much money I've got. 132. Excellent. Now, as you can see, we are actually back here on the MC Map Faker theme park. I decided if I was going to make a mini game, then I might as well make it here, aren't I? Because I've already started, everything's already set up, so I might as well just carry on using it. First of all then, let me introduce to this little guy who's in this little pen here. This is Dorian, and he is the immortal chicken. I'm not kidding you, he is immortal. It doesn't matter how many times you try, he will not die. Impossible immortal chicken. Don't worry though, I'll show you how we came about making that later on in the video. It's actually really cool and funny. So, let's take a quick look then. We already knew that my balance is like 100 and some odd tokens. We've definitely got plenty of money here. So let's play Chicken Drop. Roll up, roll up. Welcome to Chicken Drop. Hit 5 chickens in 30 seconds to earn 5 tokens. Can you do it? Yes, we can. So let's get ready then. The aim of the game is to hit as many chickens as possible, but obviously we need to get more than 5. Now obviously I'm a crack shot at this. I've been testing it and playing it for ages. I know how to shoot. We are getting more than 5, but I'm not going to show off too much. And we can move about, obviously you can be wherever you want. There's plenty of space back here. Oh, I didn't arm up. There we go. I won 5 tokens. Woo! We are out of the game. And if we go and check on our balance, we should have a lot more tokens. There we go. We now have 137 tokens. Thank you very much. Let's take a look how this entire minigame was made. Like I said at the beginning, it was made from less than 50 command blocks. I'll tell you exactly how many it was made from. It was made from 49 command blocks. Cheating a little bit, yes, I know. Only one off from 50, but still less than 50 command blocks to make this game. Let's take a look at how it was made. Okay, so here we are then, directly underneath Chicken Drop, and as you can see, we've got a few lines of command blocks here. We have some NPCs and some structure blocks. We can count them actually. We're going to see 1, 2, 3. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to count all of these. You thought I was going to make you watch me count to 50 then, didn't you? No, we're not going to count to 50, but trust me, there's less than 50 there. We may as well start at the beginning of the game then, which is, in fact, let's just bring him back. Here he is. So this is our NPC who sits at the beginning of the game. That's our dialogue. And we actually have a button here that says play game. And we have a couple of commands on this. We actually have 4 commands in total on this NPC. So we are utilising the NPC in the initial point. Because of the new initiator tag, we can literally tag the player immediately, therefore making it a lot easier for us to bring that player into the game. And we sort of add the player to the scoreboard, which keeps count of the thing that's being hit, the chickens that are being hit coming down. And then we've got the actual TPing the player into the game so they can start playing. And then we have a set block to trigger the game off. Now, all of this stuff initially, in terms of the scoreboard, is simply just a scoreboard set up. Here it is. So I've just put it in this command block here. This technically doesn't count in the count of command blocks because this is just a one-time run thing that you put into the chat, and then at that point you wouldn't need to run it again. But I put it in a command block just so it's easier to show you the actual scoreboard that I've set up, and simply add that you do with scoreboard objectives, add CD count, dummy, CD count. We're not essentially going to be displaying this on any screen or anything like that, so we don't need to make any fancy name for it, but that's essentially setting up the scoreboard Once that's done, you do not need that anymore. You can get rid of that, and therefore it doesn't count as any of that. So once you click play game, then you're then thrown into the little play area, and the game needs to start. Now we have a few things for this. We have the chain here that says start the game. And what this does is this literally sets up the player. So it's a very basic sort of setup to begin with. So all we're doing is we're giving a player the items that they need, a crossbow and some arrows. And I think this is displaying some text on the screen and so on and so forth like that. And then the rest of the chain here, it would be just literally setting the commands, the redstone blocks to trigger everything else. So we've got there giving them arrows and crossbow. This one here is displaying the text on the screen that tells you to get ready. And obviously we're bringing the player's name on the screen. And we're doing that using the select parameter for raw text. At this point we want to take the NPC, which is our first one here, out so that no one else can trigger the game. And we want to send this guy in, which if anybody else was then outside of the game waiting to come up and they come up and pressed on this guy, it would come up like this and say somebody else is playing. And tell them to basically wait because it won't be long. And that's the second command that does that, simply TPing back to the front. These are setting redstone blocks using the set block command, and all of those are simply all of this stuff over here to trigger. So we've got a couple of things that we are triggering all at once. We've got this one here, which is trigger the loop. We have this one here, which is track the entity hit detection. This one here, which is setting the conditions of the entity hit detection. This one, which starts spawning in all the chickens. And these two, which are like additional elements for the chickens. So there's a few things there that we're actually all triggering at once, which is what these last 4 blocks are doing. They're simply setting a redstone block. Now the first thing it triggers over here, it says trigger the loop. Now what this actually does is it summons in an armor stand at a very specific location, which is over here. It then TPs that armor stand forward one. At that point, then when the armor stand first triggers this, simply is just using the summon command to summon in chickens. And there's just a delay on it and different coordinates for each one. That's all it is. Nothing fancy. And then what this does is that the very last command, the last one will TP the armor stand back to the pressure plate to trigger the loop again. And essentially it'll keep doing that until we kill the armor stand. And that's essentially how I've created the loop. Then onto the main event, of course, the main element of the actual minigame, which is the hit detection. So the first thing we do then is we're setting up the hit detection using this command. This is the replace item command. And we are basically slotting armor into the feet of that chicken, which is the slot armor feet 0. We're looking for an empty slot. The item we want to actually equip to the chicken, which in this case I've used leather boots. Quantity is 1 because it doesn't need any more than 1. 64 is the damage. If it gets 1 damage on it, the boots get destroyed. And that's essentially how we are tracking when something has been attacked, because when you actually hit the chickens with the crossbow, the boots break and another one gets replaced in its place, and that is what we're actually using to detect the hit on the chicken. And so this sets the chicken up initially so that it's got something equipped, and then tags that chicken so that it doesn't try and do it again. And that way that just prevents the game from cycling over the same chicken, and it gets that chicken sort of set up as they fall initially. Now once that chicken is set up, obviously we need to track when the chicken gets hit. So at the same time, what we do here then is we add a bunch of tags to the chickens to go through like a test cycle, and this is simply just testing each chicken that's in the area to see whether or not it can replace the boots. And if it can replace the boots, it means they've been hit, and that means that obviously something must have hit it, and that is our detection. So it's using the exact same command as the initial sort of equip command. We're simply trying to place the items. The most important, I think, thing here, which I found out when doing this, is the word keep. Without keep, it comes out with a completely different result. Now, what sort of keep does is it means that as if there's something already in the slot, it will come back as failed. It will not replace it. And that is the important part of the command. By doing that, if there's boots already in there, the game determines that it is false, and it's obviously not been hit. Now, a lot of these you can see at the minute are conditional from the initial parts of the command. So if that one hasn't got anything in, it equips hit, and that's conditional off of that because that has to be true, the replacement of the item. And if it is, it tags hit, and then it adds it to the scoreboard. Again, all being conditional. And as you can see in the output here, counting each time how many that goes up. We then remove the tag hit off of that entity and remove testing. And obviously, because it's a repeating command block, it goes back to the beginning again, and it runs through the same cycle again. This here is just to display the hit count on the bottom. We're simply using the action bar, as it's called in the game, and the title roll element to display the count. So as you can see here, we're just saying execute as the player who's got this tag, because this is the one that's playing, and then we simply tell it to just display under itself. You've got score, and then it asks for the name of the scoreboard. So you're saying the name of the player's objective, name CD count goes there. So whatever score they've got under there will display there, and then the text hits afterwards. And that's sort of how we get that sort of element at the bottom of the action bar. These two over here, this one is to prevent basically chickens from catching up in here. Just going in a sec. So as you can see, obviously they fall down into this sort of chamber here, and we don't obviously want them to stay there forever because they'll clog up the game. So this is here just to basically kill those chickens and keep whenever they fall into that range. And we're simply testing to see if there's any entity within a certain range area, and if it is, they kill themselves. That sounds a bit bleak, that, doesn't it? No, we're not. That's what they do. That's essentially what the command does. It then just executes it off like that. This one here is basically this I put in place. It's really odd the way this sort of command works. This here gives all the chickens that fall down a health boost. As soon as they spawn in, they get a health boost. And what that health boost actually does is it gives them more hearts down the bottom. But those hearts aren't necessarily filled in. It just gives them more hearts. In fact, we'll do it now. If I switch to game mode A for a second, we'll affect ourselves with health boost. So we do for 1 second, and the amplifier, let's say, I can't remember what's in there, 500 I think it's in there. And true to hide the particles, because we don't want particles. But if we do that, the most is 255, okay. Well, all those hearts essentially is what happens. And you give... Oh, I forgot I'm in adventure mode. Well, we died. And as you saw from that, it gives a momentary blip of hearts that come up on the screen before it disappears again. And that, strangely, a combination of that and those here means that even though the chicken dies, it still manages to detect the breaking of the item first, because it gets a momentary blip, and that somehow changes the number. Because I think as they get hit by arrows and stuff like that, there's some kind of mathematical calculation behind it, and it essentially is based on their health already, whether it's critical hit and stuff like that. And I think giving it a momentary health boost like that manages to turn it in the favour of the boots get broken before the chicken dies, as opposed to the other way around. And that somehow makes all this work. Now, if you're actually using a different animal that's got more health than a chicken, you probably won't need this, and you would still detect the actual hit of it. And if you punch it, obviously you don't kill a chicken from a punch. From a crossbow shot, it's actually quite deadly, and it kills it with one single hit. So there's nothing you can do with that. And that was my way of counteracting that. It was actually quite an interesting bug to try and counteract. Because as detection going up and hitting the chicken, all of this was working fine. But the minute I used the crossbow, it wasn't. And that was how I managed to get around it. Now, if you were eagle-eyed a bit earlier on, as a part of the trigger loop, well, notice the very last one is actually a delayed one, setting a redstone block, which is 600 ticks, which is 30 seconds in our actual real time. And what that does is it sets a redstone block there, and then this stops the game. So first of all, kills the armor stand, which we spawn in, that goes there. We tell the player that time is up, and this here is now, it's an unconditional one, because this is actually testing to see whether or not you got higher than the allotted amount. So in this case then, if the main element here is in the sort of tag on the title raw. So we've got title raw at a tag CD play, so we're just tagging the player. And if they've got a score of 5 or above. And if they have, it'll display the text, yay, you won 5 tokens. So that was an unconditional one. But you'll notice this one is a conditional one, because this one will only actually run if the previous screen ran. So if the test message came up to the player saying they won, then this last one will trigger, and this will actually add tokens to 5 tokens to their actual token scoreboard. Now, this token system is something that I made earlier on in this map. If you want to check out how I did that, there's another video on that in the top corner. This other one then is an unconditional one again, and this one is checking whether or not it is less than 5. If it's less than 5, it says sorry, target not met, sorry, and you don't get anything. And then the rest of these are all unconditional, and they're essentially just stopping all the game. So all of this stuff is turning off entity hit detection, turning off these ones over here for health boost and stuff like that. Now, there is some delays on some of these ones that do that. Let me just come over here. So there's which one's got a delay on? This last one here's got a delay on, and what this one is, this very last one is this over here, and this is so that if there's a few chickens that, because this is in a loop, and all of these are delayed by 60 ticks. So if you kill an armor stand after it's moved across, it's still going to run through that chain before it tries to come back to the beginning again. But because there's no armor stands TP across, the chain ends here, as you can see, with no targets matched, and it sort of stops the loop. So it's inevitable that somewhere along the line you're going to get a couple of extra chickens that fall down in this pit. And if you don't give it time for them to be killed off by this command block, they stay there forever. And obviously they start collecting up, and after a while you get too many entities down there, and it's not very good. Over there, and then this very last one is just resetting everything else in the game, taking the crossbow from the player and the arrows, TPing them outside of the game, removing it to say that they're no longer, removing the tag to say they're no longer the player, and then as you can see there's some delay down here as well, and this last bit of delay is simply swapping these NPCs back over. And that's it. That is all 49 command blocks, and that's the entire minigame of Chicken Drop. Now the rest of the game then is just simply about building everything else. I mean, if you look here, I've got barrier blocks which literally cover all the entrances and stuff like that. So when you're outside, you can still look, and when you're in adventure mode, obviously you don't see the outline of the barrier blocks. But you can't interfere in the game. I mean, the most you can do is sort of come around here and look down here, so you can sort of see them spawning in and going down, and you can see the player playing, but you can't interfere in any way. And obviously you can sort of check out what's going on. And there we have it. Less than 50 command block. Cool little minigame. Anyways, we are towards the end of the video now. Now, hold up. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute. Didn't you said you'd show us how Dorian came to be? Yes, I did. And don't worry, I didn't forget. This is how Dorian came to be. So, while testing the system, trying to boost the chicken's health through the commands, because as I mentioned earlier on when we were underneath, that they were just literally dying instantly, and they weren't being detected by the actual commands that were looking to replace the armor. And while I was messing around with this, somehow he became immortal. And as you can see here in like this, he's got this really weird sort of bug on his skin, because he looks like he's dead, but he's still alive and moving. And obviously if we log back out of the game and back in again, he looks as good as new. And there he is, the immortal chicken. No longer can he be killed by our mortal hands. And because he was the first one to actually become immortal, he's the guy that gets to be placed out front. Anyway, that is it. That's my minigame. Thank you very much for watching and getting to the end of the video. I really, really appreciate it. That's all we've got time for now. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.